New tent structures, entrenchments, and short range missile systems. These satellite images, analyzed by the Wall Street Journal, show that in just a few weeks, Russia has fortified Snake Island, which it claimed from Ukraine in the first days of the war. The Maxar and Planet Labs pictures also highlight patches of burnt vegetation and the potential collapse of a tower following a strike by Kyiv on the island on June 21st. The territory, located 30 miles away from the coast of Ukraine, is strategic for both countries. For Moscow, it's an important base in the Black Sea to threaten targets on Ukraine's shores and control the ports of Odessa, where it continues to blockade grain exports.
Having positions on Snake Island sort of expands Russia's ability to block off the entire coastline of Ukraine.
For Ukraine, the territory has become a symbol of resistance since the recording of an obscene radio message sent by border guards to the invaders went viral. Since then, Kyiv has put the island on postage stamps and publicized some counterattacks on social media. But as Moscow continues its push in eastern Ukraine, Kyiv says it needs more long-range weapons to hit Russian forces dominating the air and sea in a key waterway. Here's why this small island is important to determine the next phases of the war. On the first day of Russia's invasion in late February, it seized Snake Island with help from its Moskva warship. This satellite image shows the territory before the war, when it hosted a garrison of Ukrainian border guardsmen. Moscow moved towards the territory as part of a wider strategy to control the Black Sea, analysts say. But keeping control of it became a priority when the Moskva was taken down by a pair of Ukrainian missiles on April 14th. These images show the ship just days before it was struck. The vessel, considered Moscow's most powerful warship, was being used off the coast of Odessa to provide air and sea capability to Russia's fleet. The striking of Moskva was proof of Ukraine's ability to hit targets in the area and resulted in other Russian vessels pushing back around 62 miles offshore.
Owning an island like this and being able to put long range air defense systems on it is a way of sort of covering that loss.
That's Thomas Bullock, an open source intelligence analyst who specializes in tracking and monitoring the Russian military.
Other vessels in the Black Sea Fleet do have an air defense capability, but it's more limited in range. So with Snake Island being a land position in that area where they need to control the airspace, it does become a good place to place long range air defense.
But as Russia is focusing on increasing capabilities on the island, Kyiv is striking back. The Ukrainian military said it launched airstrikes on the territory on June 21st. The Russian Defense Ministry said it had repelled attacks on the same day. A comparison of images from June 17th and June 21st shows 3 patches of burnt vegetation on the island and a collapsed tower, analysts say. Overall, the damage appears limited in scale, defense experts note, which could suggest defense systems help protect the territory. Satellite images also show that multiple short-range missile systems were moved following the strikes, which defense experts say could indicate they were moved to be rearmed or to avoid direct hits. On June 22nd, images show they were moved back into their original positions. Other Ukrainian attacks on the island occurred in May. The Ukrainian military released footage that it said showed a May 8th strike on a Russian helicopter on Snake Island. Days later, Ukraine said a drone strike hit more Russian targets. Ukraine used weapons such as the TB-2 Bayraktar, a type of unmanned drone, and the Su-27 fighter jet to inflict significant damage on Russian forces, but it wasn't enough to dislodge them, defense experts say.
They attacked the island multiple times, striking it with TB2 Bayraktars, attacking boats, circling around the island, and then finally leveling all of the buildings on the island with an airstrike from manned Su-27s.
Following the attacks from Ukrainian forces in May, Russia rebuilt and expanded its defensive presence on Snake Island. Analysts say a comparison of satellite images from May 12th and June 5th shows that in a matter of weeks, new tent structures have been erected and additional Panzer and Tor anti-aircraft missile systems have been put in place.
So we see a large number of trenches that have been dug to protect vehicles from the sides. So it sort of limits even air attack capabilities to a certain extent.
Defense experts say these images from June 5th and June 10th also show lots of vacant entrenched areas where additional missiles could be stored. Russia could deploy the powerful S-400 air defense system, analysts say, which would make it more difficult for Ukrainian forces to reclaim. However, other experts say placing the costly system that can take down targets such as fighter jets on the island is unlikely. It would be vulnerable to attacks in this location.
I think it shows Russia's keenness to maintain control over the island, and it also shows that they're learning from their mistake in not defending it appropriately the first time around.
So, with Russia's current resources, defense experts say Ukraine needs more powerful weapons to inflict serious damage. NATO countries have been supplying Ukraine with a range of equipment, but Kyiv is requesting more modern systems.
І ми знову і знову повторюємо нашим партнерам, що Україні потрібна сучасна протиракетна зброя.
The US has offered HIMARS, a guided rocket launcher which will be used to fire rockets that are capable of hitting targets as far as 48 miles. Even with those weapons, analysts say it would be hard for Ukraine to retake full control of the territory. The Russian Defense Ministry did not respond to WSJ's request for comment on our analysts' assessment of the military buildup on the island. The Ukrainian chief of military intelligence said on a Ukrainian news channel on June 22nd that Kyiv's goal is to liberate Snake Island from Russian forces. The contest over Snake Island is just one important battle playing out in the wider war in Ukraine, where equipment losses and casualties are mounting.
The levels of equipment loss we're seeing and the manpower losses we're seeing it's fractional compared to places like the Donbass.
In the Donbass region, Moscow's troops are pushing to expand and consolidate areas they hold across large parts of eastern Ukraine. Moscow has steadily gained ground by using its advantage of heavy weapons, analysts say, and Snake Island gives Russian forces a strategic position to help them push forward with their campaign.